Jervis Street by Steve Dodd. It was a scent of lilies through a florist's door that brought it all flooding back. Not much anyone can really do about such a powerful trigger. I remembered I'd almost slept with Heather in the first year. We were on the same course together, and Heather had gained a bit of a reputation when she gave every boy on her floor of halls of residence crabs. Now, she might not have been much to look at, being squat, short, with a broad face, and her dark hair cut in a really unfortunate fringe. But in the parlance of the days, Heather was obviously a goer. I hung around her when everyone else treated her like a leper, because I knew once she got some treatment for the infestation, I'd be the first in line. When Heather did ask me around for dinner, she was living in a house in the second year with Susie and Leza. Now, Susie and Leza were a couple of freaks. Susie, willfully so. She was a pretty girl from money. She wore charity chic clothes over black skin-tight body stockings. She laughed too loudly at apparently nothing. Leza was just the inevitable nickname given to Leslie Wong, a tall, handsome boy with a ponytail and a motorcycle and a habit for long, sulking pauses and, wearing women's clothes. To begin with, it was nothing obvious. A silk scarf that looked like he could have got away with just being cool with his leather jacket, blouses that made him look like a romantic poet, knitwear that was far too tight and really showed off his muscles. It was the same charity shop collections that Susie was fond of. Once they started swapping outfits, it all got a bit tragic. And then he started wearing makeup. Still, they never bothered me. And I remember Heather was clearly impressed by the fact I was sympathetic to her after her little case of desperation. So, I eagerly accepted a dinner invitation to their little place on Jervis Street, miles from campus, in a dockside neighbourhood. It's all gone now. It's been replaced with skyscrapers and seafront restaurants. But back then, the choice of Jervis Street was a perverse decision, if not a little masochistic, which, by the way, was completely in context of the rumours of their housewarming party, when Leza was naked, tied to a dining room table. Susie encouraged the guests to pour hot dripping wax over his body, whilst Heather waited behind a handmade glory hole made from a blanket pinned across the kitchen. I didn't know anyone who'd actually been to the party, and the stories of the lewdness varied. Everyone knew someone who was there, but they all seemed to have left just before it got too crazy. Still, the three of them were rarely on campus, so there was no one really to argue a perfectly good story. It took 2 buses and most of the afternoon for me to get there. All the crowded terraces just looked the same. I missed their door and I was really relieved when Susie spotted me. She was dressed in her usual black leotard, but this time with a garish silk kimono over the top, and she seemed genuinely happy to see me. "I saw you walk past," she said. "It's easy to miss this place. It's one of the reasons why we chose it." The doorway opened straight into a small room that was neatly ordered around a second-hand dining table, artistically mismatching chairs and scrolls of calligraphy on the wall. "Oh, don't worry about the table," she said. "We only sacrifice virgins on a full moon." She laughed a shrill laugh, and I realised that up close she was just a really nervous, nice person with regrettable dress sense. "Sorry I'm late," I said. "It took me ages to get here. Here, I brought you these." "Oh, lilies. Oh, they smell gorgeous. Heather, your guest arrived." Heather walked into the room holding 2 glasses of wine. She handed one to me. "Welcome, John," she said, kissing me on the cheek. "Leslie will be along shortly. He's just making finishing touches to dinner." "Oh, it's not turning into a drama, is it?" said Susie. "He's been chopping and cutting all day. He gets very temperamental when he's creating." "It's nice of you to ask me," I said. "Oh, I've been meaning to for ages," said Heather. "You're one of the few people in college we've got time for. The others are so judgmental." We clinked glasses and made some steady eye contact. I was beginning to feel pretty glad about making the effort to go. Then Susie re-entered the room, clapping her hands, said, "Dinner's served." Behind her came the tall, broad-shouldered figure of Leza carrying a tray of steaming bowls. He was dressed half normally, jeans, a blondie t-shirt, but with these garish plastic beads and just a hint of eyeliner. The dinner passed pleasantly enough. In fact, dinner was actually pretty good. Leza proved to be an excellent chef, and Susie picked up whenever the conversation was faltering. I snicked Heather the occasional meaningful glance, but she was being demure, so I played it cool. When dinner was finished, Susie and Heather cleared away, and I braced myself for a bit of one-on-one time with Leza. Through the thin curtains, I could tell it was getting dark outside, there being no streetlights on Jervis Street. And without the two girls flanking him, Leza was becoming just a little bit agitated. "Excuse me," he said, and he literally ran up the stairs that divided the tiny kitchen from the front room. At the sound of his feet on the stairs, Susie and Heather rushed in and shouted in unison, "Wait! You promised you wouldn't go out! We won't let you!" Within moments, Leza was at the foot of the stairs, tottering on his high heels, a floral dress and a ridiculous blonde wig. "I must!" he cried, and he ran past the girls into the night. I could hear him running off. While the others were just huddled together in the doorway, Susie started crying, and Heather looked at me with just desperation in her eyes. "Could you go after him? He's done this before and he's got awfully beaten up. The men round here, once they've been drinking..." I stood up and went out. And what else could I do? If I wanted any chance to be with Heather, I could just find him, bring him back. But as I walked slowly in the direction of his footsteps, thoughts for my own safety started to take over. In the near distance, I started to hear drunken voices, laughter, and then something else, something uglier. I turned and ran. It took me about 15 minutes to find a cab and get home. I had a couple of days off sick from college. By the time I went back, Susie and Heather had dropped out, and I never saw them again. Now, when I smell fresh lilies, I'm in the darkness of Jervis Street, hearing screaming in the shadows and the sound of my own feet running away. Thank you very much. Wow.